Welcome everyone to the Service Lounge. I am your host, Brandon Nixon, and the Service Lounge is brought to you guys by Update Promise. And today we have a very special guest, Rusty Mayfield from Coad Toyota out in Missouri. So Rusty, welcome to the Service Lounge. Excited to have you here today, and thanks for jumping on with us.
Excited to be here. Of course, my name's Rusty. Been in the automotive industry for 36 years. Primarily, most of it's been with Honda. Fairly new to Toyota, but been in the
Okay,
industry for a long time.
nice. Well, do you mind maybe giving for those who don't know you and joining
Yeah,
on, maybe give a little bit of your automotive background, like where'd you come from, what have you learned, where are you at
sure,
today? Um,
sure. I started out, went to technical school in Houston, Texas as a tech. Figured out pretty early on service advisors don't get real dirty, make a little bit more money. So, worked as a service advisor with Honda, worked up through that dealership from service advisor to service manager, and then overseeing parts and service with them. And then went through a couple ownership changes and had an opportunity to come next door to Toyota, to my old dealership, family-owned business here,
love
local
it.
owners, and decided to see how the other half of Japanese automotive makers work.
I love it. I was gonna say, well, I mean, the benefit going from Honda to Toyota is you've got some pretty top performing brands, right? So
Yeah, it
your
is. It's very
experience is top performing. You're not dealing with locations that have struggled, like especially like this year with like Nissan and a little bit of CDJRs, but that's good.
exactly.
That's good. So, if you can, Rusty, tell us a little bit about your market out there, and it's Cape Girardeau. I'm pronouncing that correct, right?
Yes, 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 correct.
So,
So
so what's a little unique about like your market out there compared to other stores that you see in the industry?
So our market is it's rural in a way. You know, the town
Okay.
of Cape Girardeau is only about 40,000 people. Any given time, there's 150,000 people working or living, coming in. So we're located halfway between St. Louis and Memphis.
Okay.
The closest dealers to us are about 60 miles away.
Okay.
One's up the interstate. Most of them are two-lane back roads. So dealer-to-dealer competition, we don't have a whole lot of, but we have a lot of independents that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
That's our biggest competitor.
I can imagine. I'm sure you've got a lot of customers that are either traveling a decent distance to come over to you as well
Hmm.
because they trust you, or
They do.
you know, or they're also because you guys are out there a little bit more rural. You've got customers that are trying to find their local independent person, that
Yes,
mechanic, to do their work instead of taking to a dealer. So I'm sure that's a challenge that you guys run into.
it is because there's a lot of people we don't get to see
Yeah.
because they live 45 miles out and they get their work done. It's not like in a bigger city where there's five dealers that they can bounce from. So a lot of these customers may not see a dealership.
Yeah.
So we have to be very proactive with customer service pricing to get them in and also retain them to get them to drive into us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with your market, your store, what have you seen? I guess this year recently, what's been one of your biggest challenges that you've seen? Obviously this year has been filled with a bunch of change, the new administration, the
Yep.
tariffs coming in. Obviously you're probably dealing with like technician shortages. What would you say is like biggest challenge you're seeing this year?
The biggest challenge that we've seen is people are concerned about the tariffs,
Yeah,
with the prices of parts going up, prices of cars going up because it is an import.
yeah,
Um, the technician shortage is an ongoing challenge for everybody on that. And we're having to get very creative to get some good technicians, either home, grown from the express lane up
yeah.
or try to go after some of the more qualified technicians. You have to give them a pretty good incentive package to come over.
So, if you don't mind, can you share a
Yeah.
little bit of like what do you do to set you guys apart to get a technician to actually want to
S-
come work with you?
So we offer, we do a 4 10-hour day. We offer for every 30 hours, you get an hour ETO, vacation.
Okay.
We're in the process of building the new shop. So that's going to be, all new equipment,
Exciting. Yep.
exciting. Everybody, small town, everybody in their dealerships. So they're always like, hey, what are you guys putting in? What are you guys doing? And we're like, hey, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're putting this equipment in, we're doing this, trying to be like, hey, we're going to a nice brand new shop. Do you want to come work for us?
Yep. Well, that's exciting, especially out in your area to like have something shiny,
Yeah.
new. I always, I've had stories explained too that like the lighting in a shop changes
Yes.
the attitude of everyone. When you've got like new, bright shop to work in, and it's not like dark and depressing. So to build a new store and have that new environment, if I'm a technician, I'm excited about that for
They're
sure.
excited, and they do better. I think they feel like it stays cleaner when it's new. It's not like having it stays cleaner.
Yeah,
They're more excited to come to work, and especially when you've got brand new equipment. They're like not working on something that's 20 years old.
yeah.
Like this doesn't work anymore. You got to do this, or like no, this is all brand new.
That's great. That's great. Well, I mean, that goes to show you guys are doing well, right? Investing into the
We
new
are.
store. You guys are hitting well in that market. Have you seen tariffs have affected, customers and how they're coming in or viewing, the service center in general, or has it
We
been minimal impact?
It's been fairly minimal at this point, but
Okay.
people are seeing like with pricing, they're a little bit more questioning it because it's on their mind. Like, before the talk of the tariffs, they would, get a repair done. They're like, oh, it's kind of expensive. Now they're like, is it because of the tariffs? They're
Yeah.
getting more price. They're getting a little more price conscious.
Yeah. Well, I I see that a lot lately. Like you said, they're using that as their excuse to kind of
Yeah.
negotiate with you. Like, oh, are you guys, because they've had negative experiences everywhere else where people are just increasing prices to take advantage
Yes.
of the talks of tariffs, right? It may not be that being affected, but businesses are just raising prices just to
But you're
raise
right.
prices, right?
They are. They are. And we see it. You go to the grocery store, you see it.
Yep.
Things are like, you look at it and you're like, oh, this costs $2 more now.
Yep.
And it's like,
Does it really, or is it the tariffs, or are you guys
yeah,
just kind of
yeah,
taking advantage of us, right? So
yeah. It's
if
kind of
we're
like
thinking that, our customers are thinking that, right?
100%,
So.
100%,
So
100%.
one of the big topics I wanted to bring up today, and really what we wanted to focus this on, was around, like you said, retention and effective
Hmm.
labor rate.
Right.
I know a big topic has been effective labor rate lately. A lot of people have been bringing it up. It's become a main topic of the industry recently. So for those listening on that may not pay attention to their ELR as often as they should, or don't
Hmm.
maybe understand it, can you give the dumbed down version of
Yeah.
what is effective labor rate and why is it important to pay attention to it?
So effective labor rate, years ago, dealers preached hours per hour.
Yep.
And basically, if you want to be at 2 hours per hour, you pay the technician 2 hours for every job, and you're at 2 hours per hour. But the actual money you are collecting for that, if you're doing $100 an hour and you charge a customer $100 and you pay the technician, then you're down to $50 effective labor rate instead of being $100 effective labor rate.
Yeah.
Well, you have to be competitive, and you're competitive in your maintenance, your oil changes, your tire rotations, your balances, your fluid services, things like that. You have to be competitive with that. So we have to do it at a much lower effective labor rate on that.
Okay.
Whereas your repairs that come in, you can do them for a little bit more per job to offset that. Because at the end of the day, if your door rate's $100, I'm just using
Yep.
round numbers. If your door rate's $100, at the end of the month, and you look at your effective labor rate and you're at $75, you're not getting full door rate on everything that comes through.
Yep.
So things you want to look at is I call them broken labor ops. Like if you have a specific labor op for like a diag
Yep.
type thing, or even in your maintenance and competitive labor ops, you can structure those to where you can have a good effective labor rate. It may not be your door rate, but if you can look in there and say, okay, if we're charging, say $20 labor on this oil change, and we're paying the technician 3/10, we can still pay the technician 3/10, but maybe we bump the oil change labor up to $22 an hour,
Yep.
which will help increase it. So you have to look at your maintenance, your competitive ops, still remain competitive in the market that you're in, but also look at your repairs.
Yep.
And one of the things that I've liked with Update Promise is that we can actually set that grid and set our grid up for the service pricing guide,
Yep.
and that way it pulls over and takes all the dumb work out of the divisor, being like, okay, if I go in here and put 1.1 in and,
Yep.
on here on the grid, or, you can look and see too with different, there's other reporting programs out there. You can look and see, where, advisors like to live in certain areas. And
Yep.
if I look at my grid frequency, I know they're living at a half hour an hour. So you find a sweet spot of that, and maybe you tweak your grid on your half hour for your effective labor rate. Because if you're going to hit them a half hour, maybe you tweak it a little bit to where you have a little better effective labor rate right there on
Well,
that.
I think you bring up a good point. Like the small, tiny adjustments that don't feel like they're going to be too
Yes,
large can dramatically affect your labor rate, right?
it
And
can.
and just those tiny changes, next thing you know, you're tracking your effective labor rate a month later, and you're like, wow, we made a big jump just by not doing any huge changes that it's going to affect the customer experience either, right?
Exactly. Exactly. It doesn't change the customer. The technician doesn't feel it. You're
Yeah,
just talking small changes. If going back to the $100 an hour effective labor rate, if you make your half hour instead of making it $50, make it 51.25.
yeah,
If you do that, say 50 times a month,
that's a lot of money.
it's a lot of money. It's very minute. A lot of people in this business want to go after the big jobs where you have a 4 or 5 hour job and you want to do it at say $125 instead of $100 an hour.
Yeah,
Well, people are probably going to price match you on that. They're going to call around and say, "Hey, how much is this job? At a different facility?" Stuff like it's the smaller ones where it's very minute, $1, $2 an hour here that you can pick up on that you're doing a whole lot of them on
yeah.
because you may only be doing those 4 hour jobs 10 times a month.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you guys have the brand where a lot of it is maintenance, right?
It is.
You're not a huge percentage of repair. And
No,
so you can focus on those maintenance items with small adjustments there and have a
you
much bigger
can.
effect, right?
I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago with other manufacturers. Toyota industry standard is 15.3% repair or, of repair. So
Yeah.
85% of our work is maintenance.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really low for my shop. And I hadn't be sitting beside another Toyota dealer.
Yeah.
They were at 15.3%. And the
Oh
guy was
wow.
like, that's average.
Yeah.
And we had some European dealers in there and some domestics, and they were 25 and 30%.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, so we're half of what they are. So why not tweak the maintenance items
Yeah.
and just going in there by jumping it, maybe charge an extra dollar or two for an oil change or tire rotation, charge an extra dollar there,
Yeah.
or in and trying to overcome because that's where you're going to see the most change.
Yeah.
You can still change your grid for your bigger jobs, but you're just not going to see them as often.
So, how are you getting your advisors on the same page of the importance of the effective labor rate? Like, I see it all the time where like you've got advisors that
Yep.
they're being pushed to sell, so they sell so much and they try to discount too much, right? So
Yep.
how are you keeping them on the same page that like, hey, we
So
have a goal of that ELR?
with advisors, it's just being out there and just I always come to them as a friend and not their
Yep.
boss. Be like, hey, here's why we're doing it. Here's the benefit of us doing it. And if you look over, give it 30 days and look and see how much changes your paycheck.
Yep.
We're not asking you to sell anymore. We're just trying to maximize on what you are already selling.
Yep.
And you'll have some advisors get some pushback. And, you celebrate the wins. So if you got one advisor that's really killing it, go out there and encourage. I always like to go back and say, hey, man, you're really killing this. You're doing a great job. And I make sure the other advisors hear it also to where they know that, hey, he's in the group I have, they're pretty competitive. So they always want to be over top, they always do better than the other one.
Yep.
But you just got to reinforce them with positive stuff. Here's what we're doing and show them it's like, hey, I did a price analysis, with the local shops, independents. We're not that far off in pricing.
Yeah.
And a lot of things we are, right? We're actually cheaper on sometimes.
Yeah. Well,
You know,
yeah, you bring up a good point of like reinforcing the positive on the management side of the things. Like it's funny. Our COO, he has on his computer screen a term that he has where it says, "Find someone doing good." Right?
yeah,
Point out someone doing good because it's so easy for us to go like, "Shoot, we had this initiative, we failed on this. Let's
yep,
go point out someone doing bad." Right? But you find someone doing good and you're pointing that out, like you said, it kind of spreads with the rest of the advisors. With like,
it
all right,
does.
I want that acknowledgement, right?
You want to be that attaboy. We tell people with the MPIs, you celebrate the green. A green MPI is better than a red MPI
Yep.
because you're building trust. It's the same thing with employees. Celebrate the green. Celebrate the positive.
I
You know,
couldn't agree more. Well, especially like, man, I will tell you, I wish Ford stores would have the same mindset. I I drive a big F-250, and
Okay.
constantly I'm worried. I've got low mileage on this truck, and I'm constantly worried. Like any minute, any day. It's 6 years old. I'm gonna have some big repair that's gonna happen.
Yep.
So I'm constantly bringing my truck to the dealer, and they don't celebrate the green, right? And I brought it to
Yeah.
so many different Ford stores, and I'm like, celebrate that, like things look good, because that reinforces to
Yeah.
me that you actually looked at the vehicle, right?
You
You
looked at
didn't,
it. You
you know.
yes. And you didn't try to sell me anything. You're telling
Yep.
me, and it's why I tell, especially when you train new advisors, or like when I got here, we were still on paper MPIs.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, these 5,000 mile services come in that Toyota's gifted us with their Toyota Care. I said, make sure make a big deal about the multi-point inspection. Make
Yep.
sure they know it's green. And look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, because this is how we build trust with the customer.
Yep.
This is how we make friends with the customer. This is how we do things.
It's how they
And
justify driving 60 miles to come to you, right?
exactly, exactly,
That's great.
exactly. That's what we want. We want to take care of the customer. If you take care of the customer, the money will follow.
Absolutely. So I've got a question regarding your retention.
Yeah.
With you being out where you're at, now the great part is you have a great brand behind you with Toyota. But what sort of strategies have worked for you to keep those Toyota customers coming back? Besides just that, like, is there something unique that you're doing that's
Yeah.
getting customers to actually show up?
One of the things that we do here, and it's kind of unique to a dealership that I haven't been with, we all
Yep.
have prepaid maintenance. We do an in-house prepaid maintenance that the customer can renew. Um, they get like 4 oil changes, 4 rotations, and
Yep.
we set the price for very competitive. So you're buying a package of 4, and when that ends, we can renew it with you also. You can just
Okay.
keep renewing it. So we pride ourselves on knowing our customers. Just like I said, celebrating the green. Like Toyota gives us with Toyota Care, and a lot of manufacturers have
Yeah.
their own maintenance. Honda, you get 1 oil change, 1 rotation,
Yep.
but they have to come to a dealer somewhere. And if it's a service customer, we're pretty strong in our marketing about looking at areas that are far away and people that are starting to fall off into what we call, like an inactive status, which means
Yep.
that they haven't been into us for 12 months. And we'll market to them with like maybe a little more aggressive coupon to come in for like an oil change, or maybe like an alignment type thing,
Yep.
something to get them in the door and re-engage them. And one of the things that we can too, and tie back with Update Promise being a Toyota dealer, they will tell us where they're at,
Yep.
on there. Like when we look at them, they'll tell us exactly where they're at in their status. So we know that, hey, especially somebody that's went a year and they put 15,000 miles on the vehicle, and you look up in the window and they got somebody else's sticker in there. Why did they defect?
Yep.
Why did it defect? Like with tires, we try, tires is not a money maker. It kills your effective labor rate, kills your parts gross profits percentage. But the industry shows that if they trust you put tires on your vehicle, they trust you to do anything. And the minute they go to the tire shop, chances of losing them are pretty heavily, that they're going to get
Absolutely.
everything. So, it's just taking care of people, being a nice person, make them feel at home, and try to get them, and take care of them.
Yep.
And sometimes if you have an issue with somebody that, it's not an issue with somebody, but if you have a problem where the customer had a less than satisfactory experience, how you take care of those customers,
Yep.
that shows them that, what, they made a mistake. They owned up to it. They took care of me. And sometimes they make better customers because they know that if something happens, you have their back.
Absolutely.
You're
Well,
going to take care of them.
I think advisors, oftentimes forget, like, their job description and their title is to advise the customer
Yes.
on the proper, items that they should be focusing on when it comes to their vehicle, right?
Yes.
And I always say too, you'd mentioned the maintenance packages, which is unique. I want to pick your brain on that, because I'm sure
Yeah.
as like those Toyota cares start to expire, you start mentioning
Yeah.
your in-house,
hmm
maintenance packages. Are you incentivizing your service advisors
They
on
are.
them? Okay,
They get a a spiff off of that,
great. Okay.
and it's handled through our own warranty company.
Yep.
That and they just set it up. We control the prices. And it locks them into us.
Okay.
On that they have to come back to us, and it's priced. Honestly, I had a lady just earlier come back here. She went and get her car service. She goes, "Hey, when Tyler gets back, I'm gonna go ahead and re-up my. While I'm waiting here, I'm gonna go ahead and re-up it."
That's great.
And I'm like, it's easy. You know, when
Yep.
they're asking to re-up it,
That
you've
means you're
done something right.
competitively priced for sure.
You are, and
Yeah.
you've done something, but it gives you the opportunity to get the vehicle back in, get it on
Yep.
the rack, get the tires off of it. We know that, you know, oil change maintenance, you don't make a lot of money, but it's an opportunity to have the vehicle back in, to inspect the brakes, to inspect the tires, to identify any, you know, things that may be going wrong, to get the multi-point. And the more green multi-points you get, the better, the more as the car gets older and they start seeing that, hey, yeah, my brakes are wearing, they're
Yep.
yellow right now, but down the road, you're going to need brakes. Not right now, but put on, but we'll give you an estimate right now so you know what to figure, you
Yep.
know, kind of thing.
Well, and I think too, like if you think about it, those advisors know the vehicle that customer's sitting in front of them. They're about to run out of their, manufacturer,
Yep.
scheduled maintenance packages that they have. That advisor knows that this vehicle, 4 years older, right? What
Yep.
sort of repairs are going to happen, right? So
Yes.
explaining that to the customer that like, hey, at a minimum, you're going to have these certain things that are going to come up. So here's the benefit of you moving forward with this
Yep.
sort of package, right? Here's how much you're going to save overall. And it builds the trust, and it feels less like, hey, they're just trying to sell me something there,
Yeah.
right? And it's more of
Yeah.
great, like you said, and they stay with you because they got to come to you to take advantage of that,
They can
right?
come take advantage of it, and it
Yeah.
gives you more opportunity. They trust you. You know,
Yep.
they know. And if you take care of people, they'll follow, they'll stay with you. They'll be right there. And like I said, this lady was like, "Hey, I'm here waiting." I thought, as I'm getting my car serviced, can I just go ahead and sign up for this right now?
That's great.
And I'm like, I wish they were all that easy.
Yeah,
I mean, it would
yeah,
have
for
been.
sure. Now, are you guys advertising on that? Like, do you guys have any sort of paid advertising regarding that?
We don't necessarily advertise it. We own
Okay.
two, the family owns two dealerships here in town. They actually own a Chevy dealership here in
Okay.
town. And they also own, ironically, one of the dealerships 60 miles away is our own dealership. It's one
Okay.
of our competitors. So
Yeah.
they're fairly known and people talk about it. Like I knew about it, and just from the customer standpoint, like I said, I work right next door to his dealership, but I had people come to Honda who had Toyotas also
Yeah.
asking me, "Do you offer this?" Like I knew about before I started working here. So the word of mouth has gotten. I mean, it's out there. Like, do you offer this? And I'm like, because you know, my sister has it, or I've got a Toyota, and they, they do it, and I've also got a Honda. You find out people with imports in this area, it's not uncommon for them to have a Toyota and a Honda. It's just kind of weird.
Absolutely.
Like they might drive a CRV and have a Tacoma,
Well,
kind of
they
thing.
want reliability, right? And that's
Exactly.
what's behind both of those brands, right? So
But like I said, I knew about it before I worked here.
that's great. Okay.
And we call it Coad Care. So it's out there. Our name is out there. It's code,
Yeah, you're building the brand around that,
Yeah.
and I always tell stores that too. Like you got to find your niche and your brand for your store.
Yes.
Just because you're a Toyota store doesn't mean people want to show up, right? You got to
Exactly.
build what's going to differentiate yourself, and the branding there. So you one item you brought up earlier. I know we talked a little bit earlier before we
Yeah.
joined on here. Can you share with the team a little bit of what you're doing with your diag,
Yeah.
and
So
how you're approaching that a little differently?
so I was, like I said, recently in a meeting and we were charging our diag fees 165.80.
Okay.
Uh Customer calls up, how much is your diag fee? How much is it gonna cost me to get checked? 165.80. Okay. Okay. Do you want to make an appointment? No, let me call you back. So they're gonna call an independent shop. Maybe they get a diag fee of 149.95. Maybe they call a different shop. Maybe they get 189. Most likely, if they're calling around, they're price conscious. They're
Yeah.
going to look and see. So this will somewhat hurt your effective labor rate. But if somebody's calling up, what's your diag fee? 79.95. So, and people were like, okay, when they call around and they have these and we're half the price,
As I say,
they're going
average
to,
diag fee around the nation is about $150.
yeah, we did. We tell them 79.95.
Wow.
And the goal is to get the appointment set and get the vehicle in here.
Yep.
Now, you are going to, depend on your DMS, how your DMS is set up, you're going to take a hit on that effective labor rate. So that's why tweaking the labor ops to overcome this, because you're basically turning into like a maintenance or competitive labor rate
Yeah.
on that. But you don't want to, when the repair comes in, you put diag on one line and you put saves the starter, you put starter on the second line. So that way you can see exactly You put your diag on line one, your starter on line two, and then you still do your starter at a grid. If it pays an hour, to do it, then you just charge an hour out. Don't try to overcome that, because if they
Yep.
called around looking for a price, they're going to call around and price you on the starter, and they're going
Absolutely.
to be higher. And they're like, "Oh, they just got me in the hooked in." And the goal is to reintroduce it, because a lot of these customers are calling, or customers not currently your customer,
Yep.
and it's to because they're asking how much it is.
Yep.
It's to re-engage that customer, and re-engage that customer and bring them back into the dealership. And you could, depending on how your ownership is in DMS, you could actually coupon it off and run it to advertising if that's where your discounts are going to.
That's what I was
You,
about to suggest. I see a lot of stores doing that, and then you're not killing your ELR, right?
you're not killing your yard. You just take it and you run it off to advertising,
Yep.
off to advertising. But the goal is, if they're calling around, they are, they're price conscious. And
Yep.
they're going to price you on that starter. If it's a start, they're going to call up and say, call a local dealer, or they're going to call an independent shop,
Yep.
and they're going to be like, okay, but you had the vehicle there. Some people are going to say, like, okay, I don't want to fix it. I'll take it somewhere else. But a lot of people, it's
Yep.
like, the car's already there. Listen, you've got the part in stock, or have it tomorrow. You're going to give me a car to drive. Let's not go ahead and do it.
Well,
And you
that's what I was
re-engage
going to
them.
ask you is what would you say your percentage? Because I want to know the statistic for the nation, but
Yeah,
the percentage of customers who come in for a diag who get that repair done at your dealership. Because I feel like it's a pain in the ass for me to take it out of your dealer after I know the problem, right? If it's
it
already there,
is.
let's get it done, right?
Yes, exactly. And a lot of times too, somebody calls up and said, I had my car at the other dealership. They said this is wrong. We always preface them with, like, do you want us to do a diag on it to confirm that it's failed?
Yeah.
Or if, like, no, I'm gonna go ahead and put this part on. Okay, well, I can't guarantee, because I didn't diag it. We're gonna make
Yeah.
sure we'll put it on. We're gonna make sure it's right before you leave. But for some reason, and a lot of times people will go ahead and say, yeah, go ahead and let's do another diag on it or so.
Yeah.
So yeah, most people, I'd say, 70, 80% of people, if they bring it into you and pay diag, you're going to be fix it.
So
If they
then,
can, if it comes to cost, on
so
that.
then your approach, if 70 to 80% of them are staying and getting it done, your approach of lowering that diag fee is well worth the money
It
because guess
is.
what? They showed up. You at least had the
You-
opportunity. You miss 100% of the at bats that you don't take, right? So
exactly. Exactly. I always tell people, if you don't ask, the answer is always no.
exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
when guys come up like, I hate to ask you this, but looking for a raise or something like that, and always afraid you'll get upset. I'm like, you know what? I'll go ask, because if I don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. Just like with
Absolutely.
advisors, if you don't ask them, do you want to do this alignment? Do you want to do this? 3 years, you want to do this brake fluid? The answer is always going to be no if you don't ask.
Well, that's great. Well, Rusty, you've given a lot of good information here, and I told you that 30 minutes goes by quick as we
Oh, it
go through
does.
this, right? And it goes by when we're talking about stuff that we're passionate about. So,
Yeah.
last thing I'm gonna have you leave everybody with is what's next for you? What's next for Code? What do you see in the future for the end of the year? Like what's gonna be your differentiator that you're really gonna focus on to the end of the year to finish the year out strong?
We are constantly focusing on effective labor rate and customer retention.
Okay.
The thing that we're getting a big push for is, we got the expansion coming, is we don't have a quantifiable way of checking alignments right now. We will have a
Okay.
drive-through alignment. So
Love it.
one of the things that we do offer, we start doing it, is what they call no risk alignment. And once again, Mr. Customer, you're at 15,000 miles. They recommend doing alignment every 15,000 miles. It's 129.95. If for some reason you don't need it, we're not going to charge you.
Love
But
it.
do we have the okay to go ahead and do it?
That's great. I like it.
So
That's awesome. Well, again, Rusty, appreciate you jumping on, and for
appreciate it.
those who are listening in, I'm sure take a look at what Rusty's doing at his store. I'm sure he'll be there to willing to answer some questions too, and
100%.
appreciate everybody supporting and jumping on this. That we try to get real great hands-on experience like yourself out there in the store to help out the people listening in to see if they can take away little things to improve the customer experience overall. That's our goal of the Service Lounge, is let's improve so the customers continue to come to dealers, right? My biggest fear is that customers will stop coming to dealers to get their vehicle fixed,
Yep.
right? We got to solve that by focusing on that customer experience. So again, Rusty, thanks, and
Thank
look
you.
forward to continuing to work with you in the future, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All
Awesome.
right.
Anytime.
Thanks, everyone.